from Nashville, Tennessee, it's time for another episode of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow, where all things related to your safety and security are discussed, detailed, and delivered to you. You may leave with a tip that saves you money or a tactic that saves your life. So here are your hosts, owner and founder of Defend Systems, Brink Fiddler, and owner and operator of Herring Technology, Tom Herring.
Hey everybody, welcome to this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. Brink and Tom with you as always. Today, as guests, we have two members of my team, Mike Bearden and Adam McIntyre. And if you guys ever listen to the show, then you're already familiar with who they are. But just quick background, both of them are former special operations for the Army as Green Berets, retired recently and have done a whole bunch of cool stuff. And the reason they're here is we want to talk about the shooting at Old Dominion that occurred back in March. Just some quick overview on that. It was March 12th of this year in an ROTC classroom. A guy came in at Old Dominion in Norfolk, Virginia, and eventually opened fire in the classroom. And then we're going to talk today about what happened and how it ended and some of the, in particular, actions that were taken that day that really parlay into a lot of the stuff that we teach and why. And this is just a really good example of that. I mean, unfortunately, a professor did end up losing his life, but we're going to talk about that as well from a medical perspective and break down some of the events. Before we hit record today, I was talking to the guys a little bit about ROTC, and I've always heard about it and sort of kind of knew it was a pipeline from school to the military. I just didn't know much more about it. So, Mike, I'm going to toss that one to you. If you can just, for people that don't know or are uninformed, just, give us the 30,000 foot view of what the ROTC program is and why that matters as far as an ROTC classroom, et cetera.
Sure. So ROTC stands for Reserve Officer Training Corps. So it's essentially just another feeder for officers going into both the reserves and the active force. So you've got your standard service academies like West Point or Annapolis. But this is different in that it'll be at a regular school, like Old Dominion, where you can still go to class, for 2 years or 4 years or whatever. But you also do all the ROTC stuff on the side, training to become an officer. Some will commission straight into the reserves, and then some will commission straight into active duty, depending on what they want to do.
And officer versus enlisted, kind of hit that just 30,000 foot view. I mean, you're nicely. I don't know why you're grinning.
Did I make it look?
Yes, you did.
So officers typically have what we call command authority once they reach a certain position. So there's like legal ramifications for their actions because of their authority.
Okay.
Non-commissioned officers, we grow up, we enlist at, 18 or whatever. You come in as a private, you work your way up through the ranks, and eventually you pin E5 or sergeant in the Army, and you're then a non-commissioned officer. So you're still given charge over individuals and over missions, but you don't have command authority or punitive authority like an officer does. Okay.
So, and just traditionally from what I know, and I don't expect y'all to necessarily answer this and make anybody mad, but my experience, and a lot of it goes the same in law enforcement, is experience matters to the guys that are under the command of someone else, and it should, to be honest with you. And so the ones that come in basically starting off as an officer and have no real world experience, it's hard. It can be difficult to be managed by those people, depending on who they are. I mean, I've worked under some that literally had very little experience in actual police work. I mean, they shot up the ranks so fast they didn't really even go through their first ink pen, jokingly. But those same ones that were literally in like the upper echelon were smart enough to call even us lowly sergeants or whoever that knew certain subject matter very well to ask us questions before they make decisions on things.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine in the military, much like in law enforcement, those are few and far between. They do exist, but for the most part, there's usually a disconnect there, and it's not really anybody's fault, I don't think. I mean, if you don't know any better and you come in as an officer and that's all you know and all the information you're getting is from other officers and all the stuff they're telling you, well, how in the world, unless you're smart enough to reach down to you guys who are out there door kicking every day and say, tell me what you need to do your job better. And a lot of people just don't do that. Is that the same in the military?
Yeah. And I really think it depends on how you are groomed within your either academy or ROTC program we'll use the infantry as an example. When somebody graduates from ROTC at the age of 22. They'll go through some other courses to get them a little more up to speed. They'll kick them out to the force. So maybe they're 23, they're showing up to their first platoon, and now they're in charge of 36 people. And equivalent to them, they have what's called a platoon sergeant. So that person could have been in the military anywhere between, I'll say,
10 to 15 years.
I was going to say 10 to 15 years. And now you have your squad leaders that have 6 to 8 years. So you have over hundreds of years of experience within this 36-man platoon. And depending on how that officer was groomed, they might have been groomed to like, hey, when you show up, no matter what they say, you're in charge. And that's complete false. Like, you're going to show up and your men are not going to want to follow you because it's only your way or the highway, when you need to kind of look to the people that have been there for a minute, have been on multiple combat deployments, and garnish their knowledge. And like, hey, what works, what doesn't? You guys are saying this works. Well, I need to go with that and kind of follow your instinct and your knowledge and real world experience. But a lot of them show up and they have a rough go because they think that they're on top of the world. So,
well, and an interesting thing about ROTC in particular is that a lot of the instruction they get at that college is going to come from a non-commissioned officer in the Army or the other branches.
Right.
So they might have it ingrained in them early on, more so than somebody that went to a service academy, because they've had NCO influence over their life and over their training before they even commission.
Yeah, which is great.
They come there with some level of respect, usually for the NCOs that taught them.
So hopefully they had a good one.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Or not one that barely showed up or degraded them, and it's like, oh, that's what I'm going to go to when I go to the Army. Like, so.
Well, I think probably in the Army, I think just in life, there's typically two kinds of leaders: those that want to be feared and those that want to be respected. And I always had the opportunity primarily to work for the people that wanted to be respected and led that way, and the ones that wanted to rule by fear, that usually doesn't end up well. But anyway, I just wanted to hit the ROTC program from a 30,000 foot view because I just I know a little bit about it, but that does play into obviously what transpired and who the professor was in this case, and all those things end up playing out. But just for either one of y'all, I don't care which, but just for people, I'm sure people heard about this. It didn't get a ton of news coverage, just because there's so much happening in the news these days. But if either one of y'all could just hit the overall, like, what happened, and then we'll dial into the nitty gritty of the response, but what the attack was, what it was about, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the attack that day, there was a shooter. He was jailed previously for a little over a decade because he was trying to attempt to sell information to ISIS. So he got rolled up, he got arrested, got put in jail, got released out to the wild, and he decided he wanted to conduct an attack. Now we can speculate why he chose an ROTC or a military program, kind of an act against American military forces. But he showed up on the campus that day. He had a Glock 44, which is a 22, and he went into the classroom. He screamed something that we'll get into detail later, and he started firing some shots, and he did end up wounding some people. The first person he shot was the professor in there, which he did succumb to his wounds that day. It took a few minutes for law enforcement to arrive to administer any aid with proper tourniquets. Again, we'll get into all that, but really, once we dial into this more nitty gritty and into the timeline and what actions were taken in the classroom, we'll kind of tie this into if you guys have ever been through our active shooter training program, there's some key takeaways that we instruct on and that we harp on from a medical perspective, decisive action, and other things that we'll kind of dial into here. So that's kind of 30,000 foot view.
What was his background?
So the shooter was in the Army National Guard. I don't know what information he was trying to sell, if it was anything even of value, but needless to say, acted against America in a sense. So, and obviously at that point when he was selling that, if it was over 11 years ago, that was kind of at the height of ISIS and their operational push and everything in the Middle East and what they wanted to do. So any information to them could have been of value. Again, I don't know if he was forward deployed at the time. I didn't want to give him too much research because
Amen.
It is what it is. He sold information. That's all I really needed to know. So,
and for the audience, 11 years ago, there's a high likelihood that the two of y'all were also down.
That's when it was.
Range.
That's when it was kicking off.
Yeah.
Without going into great detail, I don't know if we pushed into Syria yet unilaterally, but for years coming up there, we had our own proxy forces that we had trained and sent over to kind of do the fighting for us before it became too much. And it's like, all right, well now, at some point we had to step in. So,
Got it. So it's a little closer to home for y'all.
Yeah.
Just as members of the military, but also special operations, and also getting shot at and blown up and all the other fun things. Then you have this Yahoo coming along trying to sell stuff.
This is one of the reasons we got pulled out of Afghanistan early because this had kicked off.
Yeah.
You know? So Adam and I both got pulled out early on a mission to start handling this one. So.
Yeah. So this guy's a special place in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
A lot of love.
Yeah. Understandable. Well, enough about him. I mean, for the same reason you do. Just like in our training, if people don't know this, we don't ever name the shooter. We won't ever. We just, it doesn't matter. I think it's just a colossal waste of time, effort, and energy to even talk about them. But for background, I wanted people to understand where that came from. So let's dial in. I don't care which one of y'all, but dial into the event. Like specifically, let's talk about the timeline, and then we'll break down kind of each portion after that.
Yeah. So the timeline, as we've seen a lot of other incidents like this, very short. Attack started at 10:43 a.m. He walks in the door, yells Allahu Akbar, and fires. I believe the first round hit the teacher, or did he fire multiple shots?
Yeah, I think it was a total of 4. One hit the teacher, and that wound where he hit the teacher was right up high thigh. So either potential massive hemorrhage to the leg or junctional, right? In a kind of hybrid, really unfortunate location where, again, we'll get into the medical treatment, but could have been either packing or tourniquet.
Now, I do want to back up. The first thing he said when he came to the classroom is this the ROTC classroom? Yeah. You know, and I think somebody answered in the affirmative, but there was kind of a weird pause there.
So did he enter the room with the weapon exposed, or was it concealed and then exposed once he entered?
I'm going to assume that it was concealed because he was on the campus for almost an hour before that. He had parked and didn't say where he went, what he did. Just he was there for approximately about 60 minutes before he came into that classroom. So
it was a handgun, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
A Glock 44, 22 caliber.
So easily concealed.
Yeah.
So
And that gun mostly mimics, like for people that know Glocks, or Glock 19, about the same size. So full frame, semi-automatic, but not massive, easy to conceal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he fired the 4 shots. He hit 3 people. So, again, one was the professor, which was a high wound in his leg. He shot one girl, and she got hit in the leg. And then there was another gentleman that was shot in his abdomen/chest area, so what we refer to as the box. So those were the 3 that were wounded. And once he fired off those 4 shots, it took just as long for people in the classroom to actually move and start taking the fight to him. And actually the first person was the professor that was shot. So once he got shot in the abdomen, or the leg, he rushed right at him. He bear hugged him and took him to the ground. And all the other students, about 4 or 5 of them, followed suit and continued to jump on him. And then this was a very decisive moment in this fight. They didn't, there were some people that did go under the desk when they heard the gunfire. So, maybe they're deliberating what they're going to do next, whatever. But, we had about...
Say went under their own desk, like ducking for cover or whatever? Okay.
Yeah.
But, outside the professor, there's about 4 or 5 that jumped on top, and they went to work very quickly and very aggressively. They weren't just trying to, pin him down. The one that was shot in the abdomen, he actually had a 4-inch pocket knife.
Yeah, Cadet Louis Anchetta. Yeah. After Shaw, Lieutenant Colonel Shaw grabs him, he immediately charges
Which is
with
the
a pocket
professor,
knife.
right?
The professor was
Shaw.
former military as well.
Right.
Yes.
And so while they're in that fight, Louis Anchetta's charging this dude. He gets shot, in the chest or in the box area, and then, begins to go to work on the attacker with his pocket knife.
And so, again, that was a real decisive moment where they weren't going to let him up. So they all kind of, in unison, without any plan, ever training to do this, they went to work with one using that pocket knife. Another kid, what he did is, we talk about this in our training, is we go for the eyes. And so he went for his eyes, and he no longer could see for the next minute that he was probably
successful in his attempt.
Yes. Very. He dug deep in there.
You can go, I without getting too...
I'll just say it. He took his eyeball out.
Yeah.
At least one, yeah.
But dislodged from his... Right,
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I know it's graphic, but
he literally took his vision away. So,
right.
Yeah.
at the same, in unison, all in the same, let's just say 20, 30 seconds, the attacker's still trying to get to his handgun. He wants to continue to fire. So they go for his arm, and the same student that went for the eyes, what he did is, Mike, you mind holding up the pistol or the toy there? And he took his hand and placed it on top of the gun. And what he was covering was the slide right up here. So he placed his hand right up here, and he oriented the muzzle of the gun away from everybody in the room. So his his awareness is slowed down.
Yeah.
He pointed the gun away towards the wall, so if he did fire, he wasn't going to hit anybody else. Now, what he did also, again, we talk about this in our third hour of our training, is he created a malfunction because the shooter did try to shoot. And the top part of the gun, the slide, couldn't retract to the rear. So he created a malfunction. And with 4 or 5 people on you, that shooter, he wasn't getting that gun up and running operationally. So it was pretty, when this story first kind of came out and we listened to it, like Shawn Ryan was the first one to interview him and kind of get the word out there. It was crazy how much of our training occurred in that 30 seconds of their attack. And just to kind of validate, verify, again, what we're teaching. And sometimes, that part of the program people don't want, maybe because our training's too long, but it was imperative and critical that day. That
it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the proof's in the pudding.
If you do all the other things we talk about with deterring and evading and all that, but they didn't really have an opportunity that day. College campus, it's wide open.
Yeah.
Maybe the door could have been locked, whatever. But when they came in, he came in there and started firing. At least that response technique, what we teach in our hour 3, they were able to execute. And they had the right mindset. They had the warrior mindset, and a lot of that was probably just assuming indoctrinated, because all these kids were about to graduate in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
So over that 4-year period of being in college and indoctrinating that military mindset, just my opinion, helped execute in that moment.
Oh yeah,
So,
and seeing their leader take a decisive action, take a stand, and he worked through that OODA loop really quick. Observe, orient, decide, act, and he went after the guy and grabbed him. And then after that, it's seconds. And I think, Cadet Wesley Myers, he's the one that grabbed the gun. And he was able to wrestle that away.
He was the one interviewed by Shawn, right?
No, that was Samuel Reineberg.
Okay, got it. Well, and I think too, it's for people that are new to this kind of mindset or this kind of training or anything else. If you spend enough time around somebody that you look to and respect as a leader, it's a heck of a lot easier to follow them.
Yeah.
Right. So, not to say these guys wouldn't have done the same thing, regardless of what Lieutenant Colonel Shaw did. But seeing him do that, and their obviously loyalty to him, respect for him, all those things, right? You guys know, whether it's y'all's career or my career, it's a lot easier to follow somebody that you respect and you see them take decisive action if you trust them and all those sorts of things. And again, they may have done it anyway, but that's a huge, in my mind, that's a huge testament to him.
Absolutely.
And what kind of leader he was. That not only that he did it, but that his guys were like, yeah, we're doing this with you, right?
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, so that started at 10:43, and we have our first 3 casualties. So once the attacker eventually succumbed to his wounds between his eye and the pocket knife, he eventually was no longer. The guy that was interviewed on Shawn Ryan Show, he actually was the one that started to try to treat the professor, Colonel Shaw, and kind of described it earlier. So his gunshot wound was really high up on his leg, potentially kind of close to his hip. So there you potentially have 2 treatments depending on the location. If it's a little lower than your hip and you can get a tourniquet high up in that groin, then we're going to do so. So we stop that bleeding from coming out of the leg. But if it's in that junctional, kind of where your torso meets your leg, we're going to have to do something called wound packing, where we formulate the clot inside that wound. So they didn't have any bleeding control kits in there. They did not have any tourniquets on them. So what they did is they got a belt. They took the belt and they put it up high and tight above the wound, or at least where they could, and they tried to cinch it down. They eventually used the words, "One tourniquet is not enough." And what they did is they tried to get one belt. Mm-hmm. So they got the second belt and they went to go put that belt on there. And we talk about in the training, these belts don't work. They don't get enough circumferential pressure around the extremity to condense down to the blood vessel to restrict the blood flow coming out of that wound. It was about 10:47, so 4 minutes into the attack, I believe it was, that EMS, law enforcement, other people started to arrive.
Yep.
And when they brought the professor out into the hallway and they were trying to evacuate him, listen to Shawn's show, he said he saw one of the first responders in, I think it was a woman, she had like a tourniquet, and he goes, "That's what I need." Mm-hmm. And I don't know, can't clarify if they actually ended up putting a tourniquet on him.
Yeah, I believe they did. But I think it was just, unfortunately, it was too late in the timeline.
So there were about 4 minutes when he saw a tourniquet on somebody else. And Mike, I think you brought this up. At that point in time, maybe even before that, he was already going in and out of consciousness.
Yeah, so he grabs the shooter after being shot. The cadets kind of dogpile, and it says he kind of backed against the wall and almost slumped down and lost consciousness. And I think it was Cadet Reineberg that helped lower him to the ground. Yeah. So he was already losing enough blood to lose consciousness, or he was just in such shock that. Yeah,
I want to back up on the anatomy part for people to understand. That's more than likely, I don't know what else it would have been besides your femoral artery that would have been hit, obviously, which is a massive artery that branches off the bottom of your aorta, splits. It's what feeds your leg, and these things are massive. Think garden hose, massive, and so you bleed so fast with those injuries. And the reason belts don't work, people understand what a tourniquet does. It basically compresses your artery against your bone, right? You have to have something hard in there to literally squeeze. Think about stepping on a garden hose, right? If you've ever stepped on a garden hose, that's what a tourniquet does. That's what they're designed to do. Well, think about how much muscle and tissue and fat, whatever else is in the leg, right? It's going to be a lot more. But even in the arm, and belt doesn't, to Adam's point, get the circumferential pressure, meaning all the way around. Understand the thought there. Sadly, there was a physician who used to live not far from me that rolled his tractor and had a bad injury to his femoral, and they found him with his belt around his leg where he was trying the same thing. And we talk about this not necessarily in training all the time, but there is no good substitute for a tourniquet, right? It's like if you need a tourniquet, you need a tourniquet.
That's why they exist. Yeah.
Right. It's like if you need a gun, you need a gun. There's not a great substitute for it. Now I'll let y'all talk more on some other things you can do in that scenario if you don't have a tourniquet. But that's why lanyards and belts and stuff like that, they just aren't effective enough to get that much pressure down to that artery. Because you got to think how deep your artery. Just go Google it and see how deep your femoral artery is inside all that tissue and everything. And not only do you have to get to it, now you got to apply enough pressure against it to be pushing it against the bone where it occludes the vessel completely and all the blood stops.
Well, and as Adam said, it's high enough in that joint. There's not a clear definition of two sides to even pull against right there, depending on where it is. The other thing, and I don't know this, you may, if there was an exit wound with it being a 22, who knows?
It didn't sound like it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So who knows where else? That's where it entered.
Yeah. Where
else it went? Where else he was bleeding internally from? Yeah. And I don't know that, but that is a thing to consider there as well. If a tourniquet would have even been able to stop the other,
it's still too hard to know. In my mind, I feel like it was real close to your point, Adam. But if they're putting belts on and they have enough room to stack another one, in my mind, it feels like it was.
It probably was, yeah.
Able to apply a tourniquet. Regardless, they did what they knew to do at the time, and again, we'll circle back on that. But I'm sorry to just go off on a tangent. I just wanted people to understand the why behind that. Mm-hmm. But timeline wise, what y'all think it was? 4 to 5 minutes when they saw EMS coming in, and he said, "I need the tourniquet."
10:43 attack begins. 10:47, the law enforcement and EMS arrive. So.
And assuming they applied the tourniquet, which they probably did, it was too late. On a complete femoral disruption, right? Meaning your femoral is cut and bleeding out. How much time are we talking before you're unconscious versus dead?
Yeah. So average, you're looking at 2 to maybe high 3 minutes if it's completely severed.
Before you die. You could be unconscious in less than a minute.
Yep. Sorry.
To where you're not going to be able to help yourself or talk to anybody or do anything to talk to them. So
and the way reading the articles and listening to the interview, it sounded like he probably was alive longer than 4 to 5 minutes. So it might have been a progressively slow bleed, at least over time. So if they'd gotten that tourniquet on and kind of hitting the point there of, tourniquet placement within inside your facility and organization, doesn't matter to the school, the business and everything, is having the bleeding control kits or at least minimally a tourniquet inside the classroom itself.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we go to the schools, we'll ask them during our walkthroughs or vulnerability assessments of where's your bleeding control kits. And it's like, well, they're in the hallway in the cabinet where the AED is. And it's like, hey, I don't mind it being there. But when you're on lockdown, you're not getting out there to it when the injuries need to be treated inside the classrooms.
Or who draws the shortest straw that has to run out there and grab it?
Yeah, because it ain't me. So
right.
But at the end of
the day, I would do it, but I don't want to do it. So just a planning consideration is having bleeding control kits or that trauma equipment in locations where you're probably going to lock down, you're probably going to fortify.
And you're not talking about a high dollar item. That's the saddest part of it.
Yeah.
Live by the motto, I'd rather be looking at it than for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And at that cost factor, put them in the schools, put them in the classes.
A decent kit, $100 you're talking for the kit. A tourniquet itself, $33, $34. But people sometimes have to consider budget and things like that, and I get it. Things that are with me all the time, like within reach, are a tourniquet and combat gauze because we got time on chest seals, we got time for some of this other stuff. We don't have time. I mean, if it's a massive hemorrhage, we're 3 minutes or less. So what do I need within reach for me within 3 minutes to be able to be effective? Of course, I have a lot more than that elsewhere. We all do because we're a bunch of freaks about the trauma medical stuff. But so even if you're starting on a budget, you're like, I can't put a kit in every classroom. Okay, well, spend $50 and put some gauze, and some wound packing gauze and a tourniquet, and let's start there, if nothing else. But it's just, in this case, it was certainly a lack of knowledge, which is a shame because I think you guys all three both would agree that had one of the two of you or anybody similar to you guys in any special operations branch been in that room, the outcome may have been very different, even without a tourniquet. So let's hit that real quick, just while we're on the medical. Let's kind of jump on that real quick.
Yeah, in situations where a tourniquet is just not an option, go for direct pressure. That's it. That's the name of the game. Clamp that artery down with direct pressure, either from your knee, your fist, your fingers, wherever you need to get to. Arm, leg, it doesn't matter. I mean, direct pressure is the name of the game.
But clean that up a little bit.
Sure.
In that a lot of people, when they hear direct pressure, because they've heard this their whole life, is put pressure on that directly on the wound, right? And in this case, not necessarily. I mean, if it's right above your knee, that's not where I'm dropping pressure.
Nope.
We obviously do this in our training. It's in the groin. There's a certain place you should do it. I know we have footage of this. We could probably drop in, if you don't mind, Ben or Madison, make a note of that. We'll drop in a little bit of footage or a photograph of that. Why are you grinning, Adam?
I was saying, we can tilt the cameras over here. Mike can lay right here, and we can demonstrate for the rest of this episode.
I've certainly got plenty of practice at that. So if you guys want to,
I didn't know I was grinning though, so it's funny. It was going in my mind, so I didn't know I was letting out a little.
Oh yeah, no, you were the proverbial eating grin was coming out of you. He just said that because it's not comfortable, people. It's a very uncomfortable process for the patient because it just hurts.
It's direct pressure.
Yeah, and you're literally using your body weight, about 40 pounds, to clamp that artery down, and you're staying there until you get some help or a tourniquet or whatever. If you're Mike and Adam, then they try and get all their weight on each other just for fun, and so it's like 200 plus pounds of pressure, and just to sit there and torture each other to death because that's what Green Berets do, and it's fun. Knuckle dragging door kickers. That's what they live for. But to Mike's point, direct pressure is the name of the game. But knowing where to attack those vessels, whether it's the arm or the leg, it's also super key.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know we don't do knees on the arms. We use the flat part of our shin, just because you can snap somebody's arm very fast doing that. But there is a high likelihood. We got lots of body camera footage of it from here in Metro Nashville because that's taught through the academy, our TECC course. Lots of body cam footage of officers dropping a knee while they're getting their tourniquet out, and the bleeding all but stops, or sometimes completely stops as soon as that knee is applied. So it's just something we've missed as a society that we're not teaching enough people, unfortunately. But and in this case, potentially, probably could have saved Lieutenant Colonel Shaw.
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from what they did. I mean, they had the right mindset. Again,
100%.
They stopped the killing and they immediately shifted to stop the dying. And then while that was going on, I think another one of the cadets started to notify like campus law enforcement.
Yeah.
So that's why it was so fast. They took decisive action. They immediately started working on him once they, stopped the attacker, and then immediately notified law enforcement in multiple ways. I think they had like a ROTC battalion group chat that they notified. They called campus police. And they even guided them into the classroom that they're in. So mindset was there.
Oh, and especially if you're talking a 4-minute response from bang to good guys.
Yeah,
and it's easy for us to sit here Monday morning quarterback afterwards of picking what they did. But my gosh, my hat's off to them for what, as you said, the immediate action that they took and stopping it. Hats off to them.
Yeah,
and they did a very good job with what they could under the scenario of they weren't sitting there thinking that was going to happen like we are when we look at it.
Yeah.
We're sitting here in trainings and everything else going, all right, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. They went from nothing to escalation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, decisive action and warrior mindset. But you're right. What kind of shift in their brain does that have to be in that moment? I'm sitting in class in college in Norfolk, Virginia at Old Dominion University. The last thing I think I'm going to expect is some terrorist nut job to come in here and start shooting up my classroom. And how fast do I now have to just snap from being a college student, hanging out and sipping on my coffee or whatever, thinking about my hangover and whatever you do in college, to go into that mode that fast? Don't look confused like you didn't think about. Oh, that's right. You probably didn't go to college, but. Kidding, Tom.
No, I didn't have hangovers.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's right. Because at Harding University, the good little church or high school, nobody drinks. So
just dry as a martini and has alcoholics to prove it. Unfortunately, he's one of our listeners too. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, have mercy. Anyway, these guys. And they're kids, man. I know they're getting ready to graduate college, but man, you're a kid. We all know our brains don't develop, fully at that age. And the fact that they did it really well, and just piled on. And again, not everybody in the classroom, and that's fine because people are wired differently. And that's fine too.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed, and if you guys haven't heard the interview on Shawn Ryan Show, we all highly recommend going and listening to it because it was certainly recorded within 30 days of the event happening. So hearing this young man talk through it was. And and the aftermath and some of the mental stuff, it's all important.
Yeah.
All that plays together. A lot of people forget that. We talk about left to bang and during a bang, and immediate right of bang, but we don't talk enough about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks right of bang. What does that look like for people that have to go through this kind of stuff?
Yeah, and you can tell it was still very raw and real and vulnerable for him to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think he did
great job,
phenomenal job interview wise. On the the firearm selection's interesting to me. I know y'all have some insight on that. I know 22 caliber is not exactly most mass murderers' weapon of choice, but what information do we have on that?
So it looks like just days before the shooting. So the DOJ alleges that Kenya Chapman stole the firearm from a vehicle and then sold it to this guy just days before the shooting. So I don't know that would have been his first choice in firearm. That's just what he could get his hands on because of his crimes in the past.
Got it. Well, and that's like at Seattle Pacific University's shooting. We talk about a lot in our training. That guy got his hands on an over and under shotgun, right? That's a 2-shot shotgun. It's a devastating weapon, but not exactly a high capacity murder weapon. But again, that just goes to show they're gonna get their hands on something if they want to kill people, regardless of what that is. But had that decisive action not happened in mere seconds, to Tom's point, that could have been a drastically different outcome in that classroom. Your fatal funnel, as they call it. You typically one way in and out, effectively, besides windows, and it could have been way different. Adam, hit on the gun part a little bit more, just for people that I know we demonstrated it. Mm-hmm. But if we're fighting over a gun, just in your mind, what the minute you engage somebody in that realm, what are the most important takeaways you want people to know from, like, if you have to do that, what are the most important things you need to be focusing on?
Yeah, well, one is even when we teach this, I'll start talking about we're going to do the gun grabs. And if you go to fight someone, a lot of people want to bang and hit them in the face. And it's like, well, you can hit somebody in the face if they have a gun, they're still going to shoot you. So the most life-threatening thing ever coming through that door in an active shooter situation is that gun. So you always want to go for that first. And grabbing that gun, I'm just kind of how they played it out, and it slowed down for them. It was like, all right, well, I need to orient this weapon away from my peers and classmates. So I was like, dang, man. And then 3 seconds of that gun firing, they're already thinking about that. And I don't even know if I would have. I would have just taken it, pointed in his face or whatever. But and to actually think about, I need to induce a malfunction, quite wild without ever actually training for that moment. In our courses, they induce malfunctions. We're on the range just to see how we respond, how we react, and how quick we can get it up and running. But creating that malfunction is going to be more important than people trying to rip it away. I think a lot of people want to, even if we break down and we're trying to, we're at a school and they want to get hands on the guns, they want to rip the gun away. And it's like, maybe at some point this can be a battle, but like creating that malfunction, I'll tell you right now, it'll be a very low percentage. I'll say less than 2% of people of an active shooter that they come in and you create a malfunction of that gun by simply taking your hand and on the handgun, placing it up here. They'll fire it one time and it's done. They're not going to be able to slow down to kind of reconcile what just happened. What do I need to do? Because even on a normal day, trying to get this a handgun up and running, that stressful situation while fighting someone, it's going to take a couple seconds. More than a couple seconds. It could take 15 to 20 while somebody's sitting there trying to fight you. And that's enough time to get your buddies there, continue to ground and pound, and eventually, take that gun away. So
2 things on that. One, we teach this all the time. Once you grab a gun, you don't let go, like no matter what. So they're not going to have an opportunity to fix their malfunction if your hands are on their gun. You're not going to give them control back. And number 2, one thing people forget a lot, but if we're talking about grabbing guns, a tie is a win for you. Right? So even if we both have hold of that gun for 15 minutes before the cops get there, but bad guy's not in control of it because I still have my hands on it, I've won. Right? So a tie is a win for you, not the bad guy. So just remember, if you grab it, don't let go. And another thing, too, a lot of people think if you'll hold the gun up again, Adam, in a minute, but there's only one deadly part of the gun, right? The rest of it's hot. It might burn you. It might pinch you. It might scare you. It's definitely going to be loud. If it's close to your head, it's probably going to blow out your eardrum. All those things, yes. But the only deadly part of a gun is where? That's right, the muzzle where the barrel comes out. So just understand that, even if you're not familiar with guns, you're afraid of guns, which is fine. Usually that's simply a lack of understanding or a lack of knowledge with most people. We're not trying to turn you into ninjas overnight, even though I tease that when Adam gets ready to teach everybody. But it's not difficult stuff, but it is what we consider a life skill. I mean, that's why I started this company at this point in society. I feel like this is a skill set most people should have. God forbid they have to face one of these events. So
just to be clear.
Oh, God.
If someone comes in with a gun into a room, shooting it, pointing it out at somebody to shoot, the lady in the room shouldn't rear back with her purse and hit him in the back of the head with it?
Probably not. It depends on what's in the purse. If she has a bowling ball in her purse, then absolutely.
And if she can swing that bowling ball in that purse, that's a different story.
Well, then she could probably pick him up with one arm if she could do that.
Correct. But the correct thing to do is, as
get after the gun.
Said, there's only one deadly thing in the room right there.
That's right. And I mean, if we have to bum rush somebody in this scenario that's shooting, or is somebody going to get hit? Yeah, somebody's probably going to get hit. I mean, okay, what's the alternative? If you don't, everybody's getting hit, right? And so and with enough medical trauma training that incorporated like we do, it's just part of our course. The likelihood of you surviving that encounter if you get hit is still super, super high. So even you have to do something besides just sit there. Now in this scenario we talked about, like, all right, ours is an acronym for defend. Well, these people had to go all the way to the very last D immediately, which is defend. They didn't have a chance to deter, evade, or fortify. None of it. It was like flash to bang immediately, and they had to do that. So they didn't.
So an options-based approach works.
I would say yes, and I think there's a lot more data we could talk about in another episode to support that. But even on options-based training, it has to be delivered in a way that people retain it and can do it and make decisions for themselves and not scare the daylights out of people and all that stuff that we try to avoid.
Well, I only brought that up because of the video you show in your training of the school board shooting.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Panama City School Board.
Is it a lady that hits tries to hit him.
That's right.
That he just looks at her like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, she sneaks up behind him, and
Yeah.
she tries to use her purse to knock his gun out of his hand. I mean, we chuckle about that, and thankfully she survived, and everything worked out. But from a mindset perspective, she's the only person in that
That
video
took action.
that had the right
anything.
mindset.
Absolutely.
And it ends up being funny to watch, but like I joke in training, but I mean it. Everybody else in that video, when that dude pulls out a gun, they all went, "Oh my God, he's got a gun!" And Ginger's her name, by the way. Ginger said, in her mind, she went, "You did not bring a gun in here." Like,
Not today.
nope.
She did.
And I'm gonna do something about it. Now, was it effective? No, but she tried. And again, back to the mindset thing. So the warrior mindset lives in every human, and it's a choice to call it up. And so for some people, it just stays at the top all the time, and other people, you got to dig deep for it. But people doubt they have. I don't know if I'd be able to respond in that situation. I don't know if I'd be able to do this. Well, if you're a parent, put your child behind you and tell me whether or not you could do this. The answer is, of course you could. So same thing. It's a mindset thing. Shifting back to the two, you guys, 3 biggest takeaways from this are what?
The first one is from the medical perspective is either knowing how to control bleeding or having a bleeding control kit, either in your classrooms or the place you spend the most time. Even everyone's on summer vacation right now. If you go to the beach, you can take it with you for a shark bite, whatever it is. So having a bleeding control kit, tourniquet with you, not saying all the time, but quite frequently, especially if you're out in public, classroom, church, all those places. The second one I'm going to hit on is something we didn't talk about. And if there's any law enforcement or armed guards out there, so the time from when the shooting occurred to when they gave the all clear for the whole entire campus was about a little less than an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. For me, that's absurd. So you're telling me you had tactical entities clear that entire campus, every nook, every cranny, and in less than 90 minutes, you can give an all clear.
Absolutely not.
That to me, and I see that with a lot of timelines within these shootings that I think, perception, whatever is, man, we gave the all clear really quick because our law enforcement crushed it. I'd rather wait 5 hours before I give an all clear. And my people are still fortified, but we've isolated and we've contained what we'd call the objective, or in this case, Old Dominion University, where no more people, there's no more foot traffic coming in, and damn sure they're not going out. And we're going to look at every nook and cranny because what people aren't expecting is a secondary attack.
Right.
And in this case, if they'd quickly interviewed anybody in that classroom, what he yelled, Mike, before he started shooting?
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
That means praise be to God in Arabic.
So very common term for a lot of people in the Middle East before they blow themselves up or anything. So could this have been an orchestrated attack? Yeah. Your mind has to go there. It has to go to that there's going to be a secondary attack. So a lot of times, even when I see these attacks go on and in front of this school, you have 100 people, law enforcement, EMS, paramedics, firefighters, all these people just sitting right there. Man, it's just a recipe for disaster. So take your time clearing the facility and do it right, because everyone's life is still a matter. Just because that one person, their life is either taken or they're arrested, there's still a lot of work to be done. And it is going to take a lot longer than 60 to 90 minutes to clear Old Dominion University.
On that note, I want to give a shout out to Metro Nashville PD, obviously my old employer. But several years ago, there was a shooting at a large mall here in Nashville. It turns out it was not an active shooter, but it went out as an active shooter attack, and they treated it as an active shooter attack. And I don't remember the exact number of hours. It was anywhere between 8 and 12 hours before they declared a mall clear. That is one big building. Now it's one big building. It's not multiple buildings, but it was 8+ hours before they said we're good, right? I mean, and to your point, people jump the gun on that so much is because they trust witness statements, right? They interview people. We determined really fast. This is our only shooter. We've got no other indication there's another one. So, bang, 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 we're done, and we can declare this clear. And rah rah, look at what our department did. And that's not boots on the ground's fault necessarily. A lot of times they get overruled because people are wanting to have a win so fast. But that's a great point too. And what do y'all think is the biggest takeaway here? I think I know, but I'm curious what the two of y'all think.
Well,
And unfortunately, I have like 80. So, so I'm trying to pick and choose.
Well, you don't have to
which
pick,
is top
pick
spot.
three.
Well,
I'm just
I
trying
think,
to.
For me, it comes down to communication, right? They were prepared. All right, so threats eliminated. We're doing medical interventions here. All right, who's on the horn? Bringing law enforcement in, walking them onto the target, communicating how many injured there are, all that kind of stuff. So they immediately shifted their focus to communicating with the responding EMS and law enforcement.
Yeah, and got resources there. But the one thing I'm after, so I'll keep throwing you guys softballs, is what is the number one reason that this thing ended very, very quickly and there weren't more casualties?
Decisive action.
Yeah.
And taking them out.
Right. Decisive action and mindset. I mean,
Yeah.
And so I was going to go a little deeper on that is, we talk about our primitive brain and planting seeds. So Colonel Shah, at some point in his career, I don't know how long he'd been in, he was lieutenant colonel, so he'd been in for a minute. At some point, he'd scripted taking out an enemy combatant, and that's what was indoctrinated into his brain. So scripting that seed was planted in his primitive brain. So when he came in, he fired that round, he knew exactly what he needed to do.
describe scripting, though. People don't know what that means.
So you can script different scenarios in your head. He had played this out, these what ifs. All right. He'd done a tabletop exercise essentially in his head of what it didn't necessarily mean that it was going to happen in his classroom. This could have been on a deployment, but that kind of established that mindset. So we teach people even to script their evacuation routes, a primary and alternate, have two different ones. That way, in case your primary one you want to take is blocked by the shooter or whatever it is. So scripting can be your evacuation routes. Scripting can be, hey, I'm a script how I'm going to lock my door and drop my shade cover. So at some point he has scripted this, and that helped him get to that decisive action opposed to deliberation or being in a denial in that moment. And he speared him in 3 seconds or whatever it was. So it was really quick. So him just scripting, the big takeaway is, go to your place of work, business, whatever it is, and you can script what would I do if somebody came in my room? What would I do if I got notified on the radio? Exactly. And you can walk through it. It takes 10 seconds. Doesn't take long. Very, very easy task for any one person to do.
And understand, regardless of your personality type, you're going to have to get very, very violent, very, very fast to be effective. And a lot of people think that they don't have that in them either, but that's just not true. It's a survival instinct, right? So your primitive brain is all about survival, and you have the ability to do it. And obviously, those guys, they're young men, with testosterone going crazy and going into the military and all the things. But okay, anybody can do it in the moment. I don't even remember. Do you have there, Mike, how many times they ended up stabbing him?
I don't know.
But it was a lot. But you do this until when? Until the threat's no longer a threat. And in this scenario, to me, they're no longer a threat when their heart stops beating. I mean, that's end of story. With the situation they were in at the time, so whatever they had to do until he was no longer a threat, and that may or may not always be the case, as far as lifeless goes. But in this scenario, I think a lot of things played out just right. If you guys have not, sorry, do y'all have anything else to add before I wrap up? If you guys have not heard that interview, shameless plug for Shawn Ryan Show. If you're not familiar with Shawn Ryan Show, which some of y'all may not be if you're not podcast listeners, but it's a outstanding podcast. He's very consistently in the top 5 of all podcasts out there. But this is a really good interview with this young ROTC. I guess y'all call him a cadet. So y'all call him ROTC cadet. We'll link to the episode. It's definitely worth listening to. It's not super long. It's a few hours, right? In it.
This one is actually this is one of the shortest ones.
I think it's like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a shorter one.
People are going 90 minutes. That's short. I'm like, no, some of them are really long, but they're great. And it's an awesome show if you're not familiar with it, but we'll definitely link to that interview. It's definitely worth listening to. And especially I think because of the rawness and the realness, because of how quickly the interview happened afterwards, that, we're not all wired to just be perfect little soldiers all the time, no matter what we're in. So you got something there?
Just one thing before we wrap up, just for Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shah. So he was awarded the Legion of Merit, and he was awarded a Purple Heart for that day. So
Cool.
As well as the other cadets that were shot, they got Purple Hearts and meritorious service medals for a lot of people that responded that day. So they were taken care of in that aspect. So.
And that's a big deal, obviously. If you're not in the military, I mean, that's a very big deal and well deserved. Training, guys, I mean, that's why we do it. Stop the bleed classes are free, by the way. There's not enough out there, I don't think. And I think that you could go a little farther with that kind of training, but get some medical training, get a little bit of medical gear. it goes a long way. You know, we have 3 confirmed life saves for people that have been through our active shooter course that use the medical that were taught in that course. And guess what? None of the victims, none of the patients that survived and were treated were gunshot victims. None of them. You know, it's just a life skill like CPR is. And I had this conversation yesterday with somebody too about CPR and trauma, and I'm not going to go crazy on this, but a lot of times you see people working on somebody that have been shot to pieces and trying to do CPR on them because they don't know anything else to do. But guys, if there's holes in the body where blood is leaving the body and you're pumping on their chest, you're pumping the blood out of their body. So I'm not saying CPR is not effective. It is in certain situations, but just this is why getting a little bit of medical training is so important. It's understanding what you can and can't do in those scenarios and what could potentially make somebody worse. The great thing about the medical trauma training that we teach and Stop the Bleed teaches is nothing that they teach you or we teach you can make your patient worse. So try something, but get a little bit of training. It could go a long way and could obviously certainly save a life. So that's going to do it for this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. If you guys have show ideas, guest ideas, etc., please email us at info@tipstacticstool.com, tipstacticstools.com. I can't talk today, sorry. And then by all means, if you enjoy the content, tell somebody else, but also we'd love it if you'd leave us a review.
I'm out.